People rarely show you who they are with their words. They reveal it silently, in the way they move through the world when no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain and no reward to earn. We shake hands with smiles and pleasantries, but underneath, character is quietly speaking. And if you learn how to listen, really listen, you'll never be fooled again. In this video, we'll uncover the 7 real-life signals that expose someone's true character, drawn from the raw, ordinary moments we often dismiss. No grand gestures, no rehearsed performances, just honest human behavior, decoded through Stoic insight and lived observation. And while all 7 are worth remembering, it's numbers 4 and 5 that might shake your entire view of someone you thought you knew. These 2 aren't dramatic, they're subtle, but that's why they're powerful. Because the character doesn't shout. It whispers through promises kept, through discipline when no one's watching, through how someone treats themselves when no one else is involved. So if you've ever wondered who you can truly trust, or who might crack under pressure, stay with me. This isn't theory. This is survival through clarity. And if any of this resonates, don't just watch. Join us. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Because of the truth about people, it's always there. You just have to know where to look. 1. Observe how they treat people who can't give them anything. You don't need a psychology degree to read someone's character. You just need to observe how they behave around people they believe they don't need. Most people are on their best behavior when there's something to gain, when they're with a boss, a mentor, or someone with influence. But true character isn't revealed when someone's trying to impress. It's exposed in moments when no reward is possible. Watch how someone treats the grocery store clerk, the janitor mopping the floor, or the Uber driver taking the long route home. If their tone sharpens, their eyes grow dismissive, or they stop seeing the human being behind the job, then something deeper is fractured inside them. I once had lunch with a friend I'd known for years. Charming, funny, successful, the type who always says the right thing in front of the right people. That day, the waiter brought him water but forgot the lemon. A small thing, nothing worth noticing. But the shift was instant. He waved the waiter off with irritation, no eye contact, no patience. It didn't match the image he usually presented. And that was the point. Because when the interaction wasn't valuable, he dropped the performance. The way we treat people who can't help us, who hold no leverage over us, uncovers what lies beneath the surface. If respect is only shown to those with titles or influence, then it's not respect. It's a strategy. There's a Stoic strength in humility, and Marcus Aurelius captured it best when he wrote, "The fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good." That fruit doesn't ripen in public speeches or polite networking events. It appears in the unnoticed choices, holding the door for someone who won't thank you, saying thank you to the janitor no one else acknowledges, letting someone merge in traffic without expecting a wave in return. These are the small, silent acts of integrity, free of applause, free of payoff, and they speak louder than any carefully crafted words. People who belittle or ignore others they deem beneath them often operate from hidden insecurity. Their need to assert superiority comes not from strength, but from a lack of inner grounding. It's the same energy that drives someone to interrupt a cashier, berate a hotel clerk, or ignore the elderly man asking for directions. These aren't just moments of bad behavior. They are red flags. They reveal a quiet hunger for dominance, a lack of emotional control, and a fragile ego disguised as authority. This is why reading people silently through their small actions is often more accurate than listening to their words. On the other hand, someone who remains composed, gracious, and respectful in all interactions, especially when there's no social capital to gain, has cultivated a kind of unshakable integrity. That consistency isn't performative, it's habitual. And that's what you want to look for. Not who they pretend to be in important rooms, but who they are in forgotten corners. Not what they say about kindness, but how they show it when no one's watching. So next time you're evaluating someone's true nature, don't watch how they speak to the CEO. Watch how they speak to the person who cleansed the floors. Watch how they treat someone they'll likely never see again. Because that's where truth lives, not in the curated identity, but in the unconscious behavior. Character isn't built in grand moments. It's revealed in the overlooked ones. And in a world obsessed with perception, learning to notice those subtle human signals may be the most underrated power you'll ever develop. 2. Notice their patience in moments of inconvenience. You don't need chaos to see who someone truly is, just an inconvenient moment. That's when the mask slips, when time stretches and things don't go as planned, and what remains is their raw, unfiltered self. Impatience, frustration, silent anger, these are signals, not just reactions. Because frustration doesn't create character, it reveals it. Picture yourself waiting in line at a pharmacy. An elderly man is ahead, struggling to get his insurance card out, fumbling with his wallet, asking the clerk to repeat things. It's slow, yes, but it's human. And yet the man behind you in the sharp suit is sighing, checking his watch, tapping his foot, visibly annoyed without saying a word. That's not about the old man. That's about him, and it tells you everything you need to know. Or imagine something even more personal. You're meeting your cousin for coffee. He's late again, the third time this month. You're used to it by now. You decide to stay calm. But your friend who joined you today? She crosses her arms, makes a sarcastic remark the moment your cousin walks in, and keeps glancing at her phone like her time has been stolen. There's no confrontation, but there's tension. Her demeanor shifts from polite to punitive. And here's the truth. No matter how subtle, that shift is revealing. Character isn't just how you act when everything is smooth. It's how you carry yourself when plans are disrupted, when people disappoint you, when time is no longer under your control. The Stoics believed delays were gifts, opportunities to train the mind, to measure the distance between stimulus and response. You can't always control what happens, but you can always control how you show up when it happens. And in modern life, that's harder than ever. We expect speed, we expect efficiency. But what if those expectations are exactly what expose the ego? Because impatience isn't about time, it's about pride. The belief that your time is more valuable, that you deserve better, that waiting is beneath you. And in that moment, your sense of superiority becomes louder than any words you say. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever watched someone lose their composure over a delayed flight? Over food taking 10 minutes longer than expected? Over someone cutting them off in traffic? They don't always yell. Sometimes it's the narrowed eyes, the sarcastic tone, the clipped responses. These aren't just moods, they are indicators of a deeper internal imbalance, of someone who hasn't developed emotional control, of someone who is ruled by external triggers rather than inner grounding. Now contrast that with someone who stays calm, who offers a kind smile when a barista apologizes, who says, "Take your time," instead of rushing someone struggling to find words. These people don't just seem more composed, they are more composed, because they've trained their nervous system not to react. They've built emotional resilience through the repeated choice of stillness over reactivity. And that calm presence, that's a strength. It's not passive, it's powerful, especially in a world where so many are quick to snap, to blame, to externalize their discomfort. When you start paying attention to these small, silent moments, the subtle signs of impatience or grace, you begin to see who someone really is. You realize that true emotional control isn't proven in public speeches or big decisions. It's revealed in quiet tension, in unexpected delays, in daily inconvenience. These are the unscripted moments where inner character shows itself, clear and undeniable. So next time something goes wrong or someone around you gets uncomfortable, don't just focus on what happened. Watch how they respond, because how someone reacts to being forced to wait says more about them than any compliment they give you. And that insight? That's what makes you harder to fool and wiser in who you let close. 3. Watch how they react when no one's watching. The loudest truths about someone are often spoken in silence, not in what they say, not even in how they act in front of others, but in what they do when there's no applause, no spotlight, no reward. This is where real character lives, in the unnoticed spaces between the curated moments. I remember walking past my neighbor's house one early morning. She bent down and picked up a crumpled plastic bottle someone had tossed near the sidewalk. No one was around, no phone camera, no audience. Just a small, quiet act of care. No drama, no performance. And that's why it struck me. They'd seen another neighbor step over that same bottle without even looking at it. Ironically, he's someone who's always talking about community, responsibility, and standards. Yet when given the opportunity to embody those values privately, he failed. That's the paradox of modern life. We're surrounded by people who sound good, look good, post good, but when no one's watching, their integrity vanishes. You want to know who someone really is? Pay attention to their invisible habits. How do they treat their space when guests aren't around? Do they follow through on tasks when nobody checks in? Do they stay consistent in their values, even when there's no visible cost or reward? These are the details that often get dismissed, yet they carry the heaviest truth. The Stoics believed that disciplined life wasn't something you showed off. It was something you lived quietly, with intention. Seneca once said that virtue is something you carry with you, not something you put on like a costume. And that's the filter we must apply when trying to see people clearly. We often get fooled by charisma, by speeches, by charm. But character doesn't live in the spotlight. It's built and revealed in solitude. Watch how someone handles responsibility when no one is supervising them. Watch how they manage their emotions when there's no one to impress. That's the version of them that's real. And that's the version of them you'll eventually meet when the mask drops. The power of observation lies in noticing the things that most people overlook. The way they speak when they're tired, the way they treat objects they don't own, the way they act when plans change and no one's documenting it. There's a kind of integrity that cannot be faked. It's found in the man who stays behind to clean up after the meeting, even if no one asked. In the woman who keeps a promise she made to herself, even when it's uncomfortable. In the friend who checks in on you just because, not for attention or credit, but because it's who they are. These small acts reflect something far more valuable than an image. They show depth, they show intention, and above all, they show emotional discipline. That's what Stoicism demands, alignment between inner values and outward actions, even when no one is keeping score. Because the truth is, you are always watching yourself. And when someone lives in dissonance, saying one thing and doing another, they begin to fracture internally. Over time, that crack spreads. But someone who holds themselves to a quiet standard, they are grounded. They're not swayed by trends, approval, or external judgment. They lead themselves, and that's rare. So if you want to know someone's true character, step back from the noise. Don't listen to what they say when they're praised. Watch how they move when no one's watching. Because that's when the truth doesn't need to be spoken. It's already being lived. 4. Pay attention to their relationship with promises. A promise is more than just a line of words. It's a contract between intention and action. And when someone makes a promise, even a small one, they're giving you a glimpse into how seriously they take their own word. It's not just about the commitment itself, it's about what that commitment reveals. We've all experienced the letdown. Someone tells you they'll call you back that night. You wait. Nothing. Or they offer to help you move on Saturday. You count on them, but they vanish with a vague excuse hours before. You brush it off the first time, maybe even the second. But then it starts happening more often, and the pattern speaks louder than any apology. The damage isn't just in the inconvenience, it's in the realization that their word holds no weight. The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, integrity wasn't about reputation, it was about internal alignment. When you say you'll do something and you follow through, you're not just respecting the other person. You're respecting yourself. That follow-through builds emotional grounding. It reinforces clarity of purpose, and it tells the world that your values aren't situational, they're constant. On the flip side, someone who habitually breaks promises, no matter how small, is quietly telling you something essential about themselves. They may not even realize it, but they're exposing a fractured inner world where discipline, honesty, and self-respect don't hold steady ground. Because the issue isn't just forgetfulness, it's a pattern of emotional instability, of disconnection between words and actions. And here's where it gets even more revealing. Watch how they behave when no one is pressuring them, when there's no punishment for failing to deliver. That's where the truth lives. A man who keeps his word, not because he fears consequence, but because it matters to him personally. That's someone who's rare. He doesn't operate on convenience. He operates on principle, and that's the kind of person you can build with, trust with, follow into challenge. Because reliability isn't about perfection, it's about consistency, especially when it's inconvenient. The moments when someone chooses to show up, even when it's hard, are the moments that define who they truly are. This applies to more than just grand commitments. It shows up in the everyday, like following through on a lunch plan, sending that article they promised, or checking in like they said they would. Each small promise is a thread. Over time, those threads weave a pattern, and that pattern tells you if they can be trusted when it really counts. If someone can't meet the small deadlines or show up on time for minor things, what will happen when life demands something bigger? But perhaps the most important promises are the ones people make to themselves. Because if they break those without hesitation, they're already conditioned to dishonor their word. It starts internally before it ever reaches you. That's why the broken promise is never just about the missed phone call or the canceled favor. It's about something deeper, something that connects directly to their emotional integrity and personal code. So if you're trying to see someone's true character, stop listening to their intentions and start watching what they actually do. Especially when it's hard. Especially when no one would blame them for backing out. Because the ones who stay true in silence, who fulfill their word without applause, are the ones who've built something inside that's unshakable. And in a world full of performative words and shifting standards, that kind of internal strength isn't just admirable, it's essential. It's the kind of strength you want by your side, and the kind you must also learn to build in yourself. 5. Observe if they keep promises to themselves. Most people judge character by how someone treats others, but there's a deeper test that often goes unnoticed. How someone treats their own commitments, the ones no one else sees, the promises made in silence. You'll never hear them say it out loud, but they make them every morning, every week, every time they set a goal. I'm gonna stop drinking. I'll wake up early tomorrow. I'm done with toxic people. These silent pledges reveal something raw. How much they value their own word. And when broken often enough, they don't just reflect poor discipline, they reflect identity erosion. Think of a man who promises himself every Monday that he'll start eating clean, hit the gym, and turn off his distractions. By Thursday, he's already slipped. By Saturday, it's as if he never intended to try. When it happens once, it's human. But when it becomes a pattern, it's not just a lack of willpower, it's a character flaw in disguise. Because a person who lies to himself easily will one day lie to you without flinching. His relationship with his own word is already broken. He's used to disappointment. He's familiar with excuses. And over time, he stops trusting his own voice. What starts as skipped habits becomes a fractured self-image. That fracture may not be visible, but it spreads, and eventually, it affects how he treats everyone around him. The Stoics had a simple but powerful truth. First, conquer yourself. Not by being harsh, not by punishing failure, but by aligning what you say with what you do. Keeping promises to yourself is how you train that alignment. It's not about perfection. It's about building consistency, slowly, honestly. Because each time you break your word to yourself, even in small things, you weaken your inner resolve. And each time you honor it, you strengthen your emotional foundation. This is why it matters so much. When someone lacks that internal grounding, they compensate. They inflate their words to others. They overpromise. They seek validation. But their house is built on sand, not stone. And when pressure hits, they crumble, not because they're bad people, but because they never built trust with themselves first. Watch people carefully, not just in public, but in the quiet spaces. Do they stick to what they said they'd do for themselves, even when it's hard? Do they show up when it's raining, when no one's cheering them on, when motivation has vanished? Or do they find reasons to delay, to postpone, to start tomorrow? The person who consistently abandons his own goals isn't just unreliable, he's unsafe to rely on. Because when your word to yourself means nothing, your word to others becomes a performance, not a principle. Even more, this reflection applies to us. We must ask, how many times have we let ourselves down? Not because we couldn't, but because we didn't honor the small private commitments. A morning run was skipped, a promise to journal was ignored, a resolution to speak calmly was broken in a moment of anger. These are the moments that shape who we are, not in public view, but in the solitude of our choices. If you want to be strong, really strong, not just admired, start there. Build a mind you can trust. Build a life where your own voice carries weight. Because if you can't count on yourself, no one else truly can. And if you want to see someone's true character, look beyond how they treat you. Watch how they carry their own goals. Observe how they handle their mornings, their habits, and their hidden routines. Because someone who lives in quiet alignment, who honors his word in the dark, is someone who brings strength, not just noise. In a world obsessed with appearances, the ones who keep their private promises are the ones who are truly rare and truly powerful. 6. Notice how they handle being told no. Rejection doesn't break a man. It reveals what was already weak inside. One of the fastest ways to read someone's true character is to pay attention to how they react when denied what they want. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. A shift in tone, a cold stare, a sarcastic comment slipped under their breath. But those small changes speak volumes. You've likely seen it happen. You decline an invitation. You voice a boundary. You say no, kindly but clearly. And instead of respecting that, they react. Not with grace, but with guilt-tripping, pettiness, or silence. That's when it clicks. They weren't asking you. They were expecting a submission. Most people are polite when things are going their way. But when you say no, that's when their entitlement surfaces. That's when you find out whether their kindness was genuine or just a tool of control. A man who uses charm to get what he wants will unravel the moment it stops working. Because deep down, he was never kind. He was strategic. Rejection interrupts that strategy. It forces him to confront the reality that he doesn't hold control over you. And for some, that loss of control is unbearable. The result? Passive aggression, subtle jabs, attempts to make you second-guess your boundaries. It's manipulative, and it's revealing. The Stoics taught that control lies not in outcomes, but in response. You control your will, not the outcome, they reminded us. So when someone hears the word no and chooses to stay composed, you are seeing a rare kind of strength, emotional control, rooted in self-worth, not external validation. This kind of person doesn't need agreement to feel secure. He doesn't need to win to feel powerful. He understands that rejection is not disrespect. It's just reality. And he moves forward without taking it personally. But someone who takes every no as a personal insult is dangerous in quieter ways. His sense of power is fragile. His validation is externally sourced, so he pushes, he pressures, he pouts. And over time, if you're not grounded yourself, you begin to bend, not because you agree, but because you're tired of the emotional fallout. That's when you lose pieces of yourself to keep the peace. And that's when the relationship, whether personal or professional, becomes unbalanced. You'll see it in everyday situations. Decline a second date, and their tone turns cold. Say you need time to think about a decision, and they subtly shame your hesitation. Say no to lending money or extending a favor, and they withdraw emotionally or start talking behind your back. These are not overreactions. They are reflections of emotional immaturity and poor boundaries. And if they react this way to your no, ask yourself, what does their yes really mean? Is it sincere, or is it part of a transaction they expect you to complete later? Someone who respects your no is someone who understands that respect is not about agreement. It's about space. It's about acknowledging your autonomy without turning it into a power struggle. And that kind of person doesn't just honor your words, they honor your worth. When you observe how people handle rejection, you learn who's really strong and who's just loud. You learn who's centered in emotional discipline and who's secretly driven by ego. And more importantly, you learn who is safe to be yourself around, fully, honestly, unapologetically. Because if they can't accept your no without punishing you for it, they will never value your yes with sincerity. 7. Look for emotional control in conflict. In the heat of conflict, most people think it's about who's right. But the truth is, it's about who stays grounded. Disagreements don't test your intelligence. They test your discipline. Because when emotions rise, masks fall. And the person who can stay composed, not because they're suppressing emotion, but because they've trained themselves to respond with clarity, is someone who understands the quiet power of emotional control. I remember watching two coworkers clash over a failed deadline. One raised his voice, blamed the team, waved his hands in frustration, desperate to dominate the room. The other, he didn't flinch. He responded directly, without personal attacks, never once losing his tone. He didn't have to fight to be heard, because his presence spoke louder than his words. This is where true character lives, not in the absence of anger, but in the ability to manage it with integrity. The man who throws insults, slams doors, or uses sarcasm as a weapon may seem powerful in the moment, but he's ruled by his reactions. Underneath that surface noise is often emotional instability, poor self-regulation, unhealed ego, and an inability to separate emotion from value. On the other hand, the man who can take a deep breath, pause, and choose his words with intention during a conflict, that's someone who has done the inner work. He isn't swayed by tone or provocation because his sense of identity doesn't depend on being agreed with. He doesn't escalate because his value isn't threatened by disagreement. Stoic philosophy draws a line here. It doesn't ask us to pretend we don't feel anger or frustration. It demands that we govern our responses, not surrender to them. Marcus Aurelius didn't preach apathy. He preached accountability. And that accountability begins with choosing how you respond when the situation feels unfair, when someone crosses a line, when your pride is tempted to strike back. It's in those moments that people reveal not who they say they are, but who they've become when no one's clapping. So if you really want to know who someone is, don't watch how they behave when things are easy. Watch what happens when they're challenged, when someone disagrees, when they don't get their way. Do they try to hurt back? Do they try to win the moment instead of understanding the problem? Or do they hold their emotional line even if their voice shakes? That's where leadership lives. Not in control over others, but in self-control. This kind of restraint isn't weakness. Its strength is that it doesn't need to prove itself. It's what Stoics called ruling over the self. It's the kind of energy that doesn't dominate a room by volume, but by presence, and you'll know it when you see it. Because the person who stays calm while others unravel doesn't just earn respect, they command it without needing to demand it. Their energy disturbs those who are uncentered, because their peace is threatening to those addicted to chaos. Ask yourself, how often do people around you lose themselves when the stakes rise? And how often do they hold their ground, not by overpowering, but by staying rooted in principle? Emotional control in conflict isn't about winning the argument. It's about not losing your soul just to prove a point. It's about staying connected to your values, even when every part of you wants to lash out. And when you see someone do that, even once, you can trust that they're not being driven by ego, but by integrity. In the end, it's not who shouted, who won, or who looked strong in the moment. It's those who walked away without compromising their character. That's who you want to learn from, stand beside, and become. Because emotional mastery is the final test of true character, and it's one that most people fail quietly. True character isn't revealed through charm, status, or polished words. It shows itself in the quiet details, how someone treats the unnoticed, how they handle discomfort, how they react to rejection, and how they carry their own promises. Each of these moments, though ordinary, offers a glimpse into emotional discipline, personal integrity, and inner strength. When you observe someone in conflict or see how they respond when told no, you witness the reality beneath the surface. These subtle reactions speak louder than any self-promotion. The Stoics believed that your real power lies in how you govern yourself, not in how you control others. So the next time you wonder if someone is trustworthy, grounded, or stable, don't focus on what they say. Watch what they do when it doesn't benefit them. Pay attention to their emotional control, their ability to act without reacting, and their respect for boundaries, both yours and their own. We invite you to share your own stories in the comments below. Have you ever seen someone's true nature revealed in an unexpected moment? And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content on Stoic character, emotional mastery, and how to read people deeply and clearly.